Well, hello, Dragon family. Happy Thursday. Ray Onra coming to you live here in our For the Love of Dragons Facebook group, and going to be posting this on our YouTube channel as we always do because a lot of people are catching the playbacks. And I've gotten some great questions in the last about 10 days since the one of the other videos. There were some comments on it with some questions, and I got an email with some questions. So I'm going to dive into a couple different things here. One is about Dragonmasters and what that really means. And the other is a really interesting dive into the Lyrans, the feline lineages and such, and how they are organized. So let's start with the Dragonmasters. Somebody commented on the YouTube on the 4th of November that I had often mentioned Dragonmasters, or that I am one, and what are Dragonmasters masters of? Specifically, what does it mean to be a Dragon Master? And how can a dragon be such a master? And what are their gifts? What are their abilities? What do they do? So what's very interesting, when we think about Dragon Master, with English specifically, when we say Dragon Master, we're typically our brain will go to dragons being mastered. That a Dragon Master is someone who masters dragons, who is the tamer or the keeper or the guardian of those dragons, whereas really it should be called Master Dragons. And we should reverse that a little bit, because a Dragon Master is a being who is dragon at their core, who has mastered specific gifts, mastered specific realms of experience. And so they're known as Dragon Masters, and I often will refer to the fact that I work with masters, that many of the masters find me to complete their training, or that they're moving into that aspect of mastery. And it's just something that has revealed over time of the levels that I'm working with beings on. So it's very fun to think of that concept and really what are their gifts and abilities? It really depends on each one. That if they are master dragons, there are many fields, whether it's with quantum field stuff, with its teleportation, with creation, with field expansion for dimensional planes, with grid keeping, portal keeping. There's so many, like, universe, infinite number of things that they may have mastered, and it depends the realms that they've incarnated in. So I think just a basic understanding of that term is really what's needed here with the question that was asked. To be what really is a Dragon Master. And I would say, first off, we need to change that wording. It's Master Dragons, because they are the dragons themselves, and they are at certain levels of evolution and mastery in specific fields. And you can imagine that you can sort of equate it to like a student of the universe that maybe here on Earth keeps going to university and getting more and more degrees. That maybe they've already got a Bachelor of Arts in watercolors or oil painting or history of art, and then they go and they get a BS in science and chemistry, and they want to go into organic chemistry, and then how would they combine that with this and that, and that they keep going back for more and more schools and evolution of their being that can be very varied, that can be multi-discipline, that there's so many opportunities that they may, sort of like a scientist, always trend towards specific divisions within that, like say a specific area of focus, but that there's also freedom of choice, freedom of moving into what those expressions are and how they build off of each other. So if you're a dragon who's mastered, say, being able to breathe things into reality, being able to use your fire temper, your force within, to breathe things into being, then could you expand on that and get another level of mastery or another degree in breathing things into creation that are organic, that have consciousness. Maybe they're static and non-organic. Maybe it's like breathing systems into being. Maybe it's actual beings. Maybe it's living consciousness, like trees, or creating plants, that kind of thing. So there's all kinds of variation, but I think the subtle distinction is in the understanding of the wording and how we really need to look at it. So I'm going to dive into the other questions then, and these came in an email, and so I'm going to read part of it because was very interesting. And I love when you guys ask questions that I wouldn't normally think of or dive into, because it stretches all of us. And so it says, I'm meaning to ask you this question for a while now, which may be of wider value to the dragon family in our weekly discussions. You've been indicating many times in your YouTube videos that we're now in the transition phase between the guardianship of dragons and that of the lions or felines for Gaia. With the eons of grid work and protective work by the dragons being complete. And I have talked about that a lot, that we are shifting from the dragons as the grid keepers to the Lyrans as we move into the fifth dimensional system, taking on that responsibility. And so it says, can you please explore for us how the winged lions, as I know them, are organized by way of lineages, which I assume are similar but different to those of the dragons? So the question there is, do they have lineages? So when we talk about that, the dragons are organized in lineages that are all based on trines. It's a trinary system. So there's love, wisdom, and power as the three basics of what their lineage delineations are. So the question is, are the felines organized in the same way, a similar way, a different way? What are their characteristics? And I'm really curious if there's such a lineage approach to their capabilities, focus areas, and expressions, as well as the multidimensional layering of evolution of their respective consciousness. So I'm going to dive into that question first, because there are a couple of questions below that. So for me, what I find really interesting is a lot of that has revealed itself actually fairly recently. So it will be one of the topics or one of the things sort of discussed or exposed very gently in the new book that I'm in the midst of. Super excited to let you guys know. I've been talking about tackling it, been feeling it coming in for a while, and I started maybe 2 months ago, really dedicating the time to actually bringing it all together. And I would say I'm at least halfway. Super excited about that. There will be lots more time needed to get all the diagrams and charts and visuals as part of that, and then format it to get it off to a publisher. But I'm projecting sometime next year, especially if I can dedicate more time to it. So I'm super excited about that. And this will be one of those topics introduced in it of that feline shift of the Lyrans taking over. So one of the things that revealed fairly recently is in that aspect of love, wisdom, and power with the dragons. The shift point between the trinary system and what I would call the quad system, or what shows up as geometrically as 8-pointed stars. It's a 4-based component, which is the new Lyran system, that they do have a 4th pillar. And so that would be their lineage. So they would have a love, wisdom, and power lineage in their structure. But I have not dove into, like with the dragons, I've got a whole lineage chart in the book that shows the dragons of Orion, the dragons of Middle Earth, the dragons of Sirius, the dragons of the Pleiades, and how that hierarchy works. I have not done that through those systems with the Lyrans. It's never been my calling because I'm not Lyran. And that information is held within me as part of the dragons, because I have that knowledge. So I think it's out there to pull through for any that is Lyran and want to tackle that. But for me, just even a base level knowing that the 4th pillar revealed that when we shift from the dragons, which have been like beacons, they're the guides, they hold love, wisdom, and power as anchors of frequency for our evolution. So what is the difference between them and the Lyrans as the Lyrans come in to hold this next phase? And as we move into, and you understand that phase of New Earth, that it's about a communal harmonic, it's about transparency within ourselves. Hi, Jetta, thanks for that. That it's a whole different dynamic energetically that was in the past, we could call it almost parasitic on Gaia, that we were still learning about ourselves in each of these individual pillars. And to get out of that system, the guardians of that, the dragons, have been holding like beacons of light, like, hey, pay attention, come this way, I'm your guide. I've got keys for you. Whereas the Lyrans holding the dynamic of a system that has a communal harmonic, that has this idea of transparency, or this, not just an idea, but a necessity that we cannot step into it unless we're in full transparency, both with ourselves and with everyone around us that's part of that communal harmonic. It's about being willing to have the heart that exposed. So the other pillar that is held within the Lyran system that makes it very uniquely possible for them as a a culture or a race of beings that can hold that is that they have embrace, that their hearts hold a different level of, I mean, the dragons are the most unconditionally loving beings that I've experienced, but they act as like a backstop, a container, a guide, like, all right, here it is. Whereas the embrace aspect that the Lyrans hold is that enfolding, that ability to move that guidepost in and around you in a sense of, I'm part of you. I am with you. I am part of you. I am holding this, that I not only have love as a guiding rock and foundation of what my being is, but this embrace aspect that just sort of brings everything into the fold, brings it all together. That's the embrace of the fourth pillar, if you would, of the felines. So I would say that's 4 lineages that they focus on. I have not broken down the hierarchy, but I think it's interesting to even contemplate and allow, like, what would that look like? And what does that mean as far as their capabilities? So I would say that their focus still is going to have those characteristics, that there are those, and they're not all lion. So the feline kingdoms in Lyra are, when I've encountered that energy, many times it's golden winged lion, sometimes it's white lion, with or without wings, but it's not always lion. I have encountered cheetah beings, jaguar beings, feline type beings that I don't have names for because we don't have a corollary species on the planet that matches it. But, you know, anything you can think of, the tigers, the jaguars, the leopards, the panthers, the cheetahs, the lynxes, the bobcats, all of that is part of what you would experience in the Lyran system and beyond that. And they're not only just feline. So there was a question in here, maybe it's down a little bit further. I'd love to know more about whether we can be both dragon and feline. And if so, can we pass the baton to ourselves in this shift of the guardianship, so to speak? What a great contemplation. And the answer is yes. So there's a couple of different ways what that can look like. So there are hybrids. I have encountered multiple hybrids there's been one, I think, in each of my groups, at least one, since about the 3rd year. And they are a dragon Lyran hybrid, where they are half feline, half dragon, in different makeups of that, but energetically both very clear, present, both components as one being. That is their higher self structure, that's their aspect, and they hold both energies. So that's possible, but it's also possible to have either a dragon or feline oversoul structure as your first and foremost incarnation, and choose to incarnate as dragon or choose to incarnate as feline and be part of each system. That indeed, I believe there are many that have components in both systems that are handing batons to themselves because they want to hold that guardianship, because that's the kind of service that they are drawn to or naturally orient to be the guardians of those systems. And so they would, of course, have an incarnation or an aspect that is present in both and holding both for that transition. And I do often refer to those beings as the bridges, the bridge keepers, that are ensuring the transition by being both, by having a certain number of those in place as we transition, that it's almost guaranteeing the success of the transition by having at least a certain number of those bridges in place to get the rest of the dynamic rolling. So I thought that was another just fascinating question. And then the final question here was from George, when he emailed me. It says, how can we find out which lineage we may belong to or originate from, or otherwise how are we associated with them in the higher realms and our prior lifetimes and incarnations? And it doesn't matter what zodiac sign you're born under, that can give you insights or clues, but it doesn't necessarily, a lot of times your birth sign has more to do with either your characteristic signature, like soul level signature characteristics that you would choose to be aligned with for this final ascension round, or you might be choosing very specific birth situations because it is the final round and you have X, Y, Z, and ABC over here to complete in order to complete that transition. So don't pay attention to your birth signs, or even the fact that you might be born in the year of the dragon. Some of us have designed that to help us wake up to that, to be aligned and go, hey, dragon energy, I need to remember that at some point. I'm not Year of the Dragon, I'm a Year of the Horse, interestingly. I'm a fire horse, which is odd because I'm a water dragon, as my soul composure. But I chose the fire horse dynamic for 5 planets in Libra for a very distinct set of characteristics that would come energetically with that alignment that matches some other things for me. So how do we know what lineage we are? I would say the only real way to know that is to keep diving into your inner work. That as we release traumas, we get densities out, and we get closer and closer to our central pillar, that kind of information starts bleeding through. We start getting closer hints of that. We start getting awarenesses of our deeper connection to, maybe you're feeling connected to both the feline and the dragon. That may be indicating, wow, is there hybrid something within my field? So it's all about the closer you get to your home stretch, the more accurate and honed in your information is as to what those would be, to know where you originate from, where you belong to. And if you're not getting that information, don't stress or strive after it. It comes when you're ready for it. And I will tell you that even in my program, so say way back when I had a 9-month program, the Way of the Dragon Heart, and there were people in the program that they didn't find out or even connect with their dragon fully until 2 weeks before we finished 9 months. It was the first real concrete, hands-on, like solid bodily connection they felt with their dragon. And they had inklings, they'd had little bits or like knowings, but it was a real solid realization. That took 8.5 months. Granted, things aren't taking that long now, but it comes in when you're ready. And I've had sessions in the last year with people that in their first call with me, even on a 20-minute dragon reading, it was revealing. That used to be very, very unusual, super uncommon, super rare, that there would be that level of connection and revelation in a brief first-time session with someone. Maybe even a full-blown session, but others, I might work with them for months or years and it's not ready to come out. And that's perfect. You will have it in your perfect timing. But continually going in and, intention is powerful. And holding your intention of what you want to have as conscious knowledge will help bring it through. Or help you see the blocks as to why you haven't remembered those pieces yet. Because a lot of times when we don't get that information, it's because we have a resistance to the true levels of it. Am I really ready to see myself as a dragon? It took me a long time. I was not ready for the first, dragons came in about 2004 for me. It was maybe 2017 when I actually said, yep, full on. I am fully dragon, and not only that, I'm going to talk, I knew I was dragon, but I'm going to go public with it. It can take that long to own it, and that's okay too. So I want to thank George, and it was, I didn't jot down her name, it was a long handle that wasn't an actual name. So thank you for the questions. I love them when they come in. Hopefully that was insightful, and I will let both of them know. I'll tag them on a reply or something so that they see that we've talked about it today. I encourage you to send your questions in and let us know what you want to know, because that benefits everybody. I'm certain that a lot of you will get even just a tidbit trigger out of what we discussed today that will lead you forward. And that's the whole goal of being here. It's getting us all further forward on our path to our completion, to our state of union. And it's super exciting because there's lots of big things happening globally, energetically, that are really bringing us into that home stretch. So wishing you guys a beautiful week. We will see you next time. Happy Thursday. And until next time, bye for now.